All right, in this week's episode, we talk about what's the most valuable skill, and that is either getting or keeping a woman. And, you know, I had to bring up the point that a lot of what we do when we're trying to get a woman is just a facade, man. So much of the stuff that we do is just fake. And maybe it's a skill, maybe it's not.
Yeah, but it really is the most valuable skill is being able to transition from girlfriend to fiance to wife. And that is really the longevity of keeping your marriage and keeping your relationship strong and healthy. So that's really the most important skill that you can have as a husband. So if you want to hear the full conversation, continue listening. So we've been both been married for over a year, right? Now, as you reflect on your marriage and what marriage entails, and you reflect on before you were married and different relationships, do you feel like more, it took more skill to uh, pour into your girlfriend once you knew her before, and then as you progressed into your fiance, into your wife, was it, do you feel like there was more of a skill to, for lack of a better term, get Katie or get her to buy into who you are and what you're bringing as a package that she would like lean in and invest in you? Or is it more of a skill as you're being married to show up every day and be a good husband?
So I have a couple different thoughts on this. As a young man, um, I want to say a few of my friends used to look to me to help them kind of get over that hump of obtaining a relationship or crossing that boundary of like friendship into girlfriend, right?
Mhm.
um so that I feel was a skill that I have developed in the past, maybe even fine-tuned, right?
Mhm.
And it's funny to think about it now because I'm so far removed from that, but it's like I was good at that. I don't know, man. Like, my mind's going in a million different places right now. I, it's almost like you can put on a front, right, in order to get a girl.
Mhm.
Okay. And so if you look at it like it's just this sort of facade, how much of it, of what you're presenting, is the real you, right? Like there's, all right, so let's equate it to getting a job, right?
Mhm.
And on paper, through your resume, with the way you word things and whatnot, you may appear to be the perfect candidate. But then you get hired, they put you in that role, and they might expect you to be able to do some of the things you might not necessarily know how to do by the way you worded your resume, right? So I
Mhm.
think about that, sort of like, relating it to a relationship. Um, if you present yourself in a manner of being grounded and um, you know not having a temper, and you know it's like these are the parts of yourself that you kind of hide and stash away. Obviously eventually they will come out, as all things do. um, when you cross that border and now you're starting to talk about getting engaged, getting married, right? There's, I feel like, this idea that we should still be who we presented ourselves to be in the beginning, right? But then I feel like that doesn't necessarily allow for growth. And the growth comes in to having the skills to be able to keep a woman, right? Maintain a relationship, be able to consider her feelings, and if you're going to have children, being a father, um, maintaining all of that with holding down a job and being a provider and all these different things. So I say all that to say, if I'm reflecting on it now, I think the easier thing to do is to get the woman, right? Um, I would say the harder thing to do is keep her. But as far as the most valuable skill, which I'm sure we'll get into in our conversation, I'm kind of on the fence. And the reason is this. Getting or keeping the woman. If you can't get her, then there's no way to keep her. But being married now, right? It's like, oh, I don't know, being over that hump.
Yeah.
Like the more skillful and the more knowledgeable thing to have or possess is the knowledge of how to keep her. I've talked a lot. It's on you now.
Yeah, as you were talking, it is. I'm so far removed, and I think it all kind of depends on your personality too, right? So I was reflecting on myself pre marriage, right? Like, who was I and how did I approach relationships? So for me, I was, I think I was authentically me, right? To the point that like, but I'm also like oblivious guy. Like, if a girl was into me, I didn't always know. Or if I was into her, I didn't know how to present it. So there was like, I would just be me and kind of in hopes that something would happen.
Yep.
Like, where maybe a situation would arise where like it would be made known by some situation. Maybe it was a touch or like, like eye contact or just like a conversation that would just happen. And then it'd be like, oh, okay. Like, all right, she's into me too. Like that type of thing. So I erred on the side of caution. I wasn't as um, assertive, I would say, as some other people are that I know. So I don't know if it is a skill. It was that skill for me before I was married. Because I'm super comfortable with being comfortable too. So like if we're chill as far as like just the opposite like a platonic relationship and I may think she's cute, like that's cool. But like if I kind of think she's into me or I'm into her, like, and want to see where it would go, like I wasn't as assertive as other people. So I'd be like, all right, well, I'll just wait and see, either she's into me and I don't know it, or she just wants to be friends. And that kind of, it didn't always play out for me in the best situation. Maybe I would find out later that a certain female was into me, but like I just didn't shoot my shot. So it's like, oh, okay. But it did work out for me in how I met
Right.
my wife. So like, so ultimately I played the good play, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right. But as I was thinking and as you were talking, I was like, okay, like I don't know if I was even skillful in general in, you know, getting a woman or, having a girlfriend or whatever. Um, and especially as it played out in my ultimate relationship, right? the one that I'm now 14 years in, um, it was definitely a friendship first. Didn't even come in with it with anything besides she's a great person and she's cute. Um, and then that just matured and evolved. So I come from the aspect like I'm opposite of you. No one was coming to me saying, "Yo, bro, how do I get this girl? Like, how do I make her like me? Blah blah blah." Like that wasn't me. I was there for all those conversations, but I wasn't asking someone, but I also wasn't giving that advice out. So I'm like the outlier. um, so for me, it definitely takes it's more skillful for myself um, to keeping a woman even engaged in a relationship correctly, um, and then transitioning from girlfriend to fiance, and then from fiance to wife to healthy marriage. Like that's more important, like a more um, important skill if we're a level of importance, but it might not be the most, skillful per se.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I rambled.
that was all good. So while you were talking, I came up with two questions. And this would be for
Mhm.
any of the ladies out there that might be listening. The first one, as we're talking about being skillful in uh, in obtaining a woman, and I hate to put it that way because it's not like we own you, obviously, right? It's just getting into that relationship. How delusional are we? And I say that like just from a perception uh, basis, right? I know how I think things went in the past, right? How I was able to help some of my friends get into some relationships or even just, start conversations, that sort of thing. And then beyond that, the second question would be, have you ever felt tricked? Right? Like, have you ever got into a conversation with the guy like, oh wow, he's like got this, that, and the third going on. Let's go on a date. Let's see what's going. Let's see what happens. And then a couple months later, you're like, this is not what I thought it was. I've been had.
I've been duped.
Right? And it goes back to that facade I was talking about, right? Like we get really good at presenting our best version of ourselves, right? Especially if you consider, a first date or something like that, right? We're dressed really nice, we got our brand new shoes on, right? No scuffs, no marks, nothing like that. And, you know, might have even borrowed a buddy's car to act like we had some money.
Mm,
Right.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
all these things that we do to present our best selves, which by just what I said, a lot of that wasn't necessarily us, right? You borrowed somebody's car. Like that ain't you, bro.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that question is that our best selves?
That's what I'm saying.
Is that even ourselves any at all?
Exactly.
So are
Exactly.
so are we basically saying that we're faking?
Start
Like
everything with a lie.
are we good? Are we good at faking? Like is the more important skill faking? But it's like that natural, or it's that natural selection, right? Like, if you look in the wild, like the peacocks, like they poke out their chest, they show all their feathers, blah, blah, blah. Look at me. Like, that's in essence what we're doing. Like, look at me. I have it together. Like,
Yeah.
but do we? So is the
Yep.
skill, is it actually that skill? Like, what is the skill that we're talking about? You know what I mean? Is it skill of fronting, basically putting on a front? You know, is it just all the cap right there? Like that's it. Like this is it. Um, I think for me now that we talk about that, initially, I think the more valuable skill is for this topic, you know, keeping your woman, right? Because that's where your real authentic self is. That's where, um, if you remember when Concise the Barber came on, they said, "What's the best part of being married?" He was basically like, it allows you to be someone to be with your authentic self through all the flaws,
Yeah.
and they ride with you. So like that is the more valuable skill, is being able to stay married, stay in your
Yeah.
relationship, because that's where your buddy's car is no longer there. That's where you don't have a haircut. That's where you have morning breath. That's where you've been sick, right? That's where you've been a whiny brat because you don't know how to handle your emotions, right? That's where
Mhm.
your true self comes out, and your flaws, right? Obviously the good parts of you, you're loving, you're caring, you take care of what you need to, all those things are there too. But if we were to present ourselves initially like that, then like we'd not be married right now. Like maybe so. Um, so to be able to grow in your authenticity, and still have her around, let's be honest, every woman has options besides us. So, you know what I mean? It's initially, right? Like when we're, before we put a ring on it, like they could move on. So, like, it's the keeping part and transitioning from girlfriend to fiance to wife. That is the skill. I think that is more valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was always where we were landing. Um, but I think that this conversation is an important one for a lot of the reasons that you just stated there, right? And then another thing that you got me thinking about is it more societal that that got us into this I don't know, this area of trying to put the front on, right? Or is it that actually what women need from us, or is that what we need to present to women in order to obtain a relationship? Right? Is it the media that has been pumping that into us with ads and all this, like, oh, you have to have the best car and you have to have this watch and you got to buy these shoes and wear a suit, right? Has it been years and generations of that being pumped into us, right? Or if we think back to before all that existed, it was the man who was just presented as the strongest and who could hunt and provide. That was just the natural choice, right? Does that exist anymore? I know it does to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah, I was thinking when you said that, because if you go back into marriages, it's how who would be the best that could provide for and make space for a family, right? Who would, in an arranged marriage, who would bring the best dowry, right? Whose family was most prominent? Like all those things played into it. Um, was their skill, whatever their trade was that going to be sustainable? Was it an honorable trade? Um, so yeah, I mean, a lot of places the marriages were arranged, so it didn't even matter. All those things didn't matter. Um, but I think as we transition to a more industrial society, there had to be something that we could present, so that once arranges marriages were no longer arranged, like how could we show ourselves different and be attractive to women, right? So I think it's kind of like that mixed bag. Like we need to do that for ourselves, because I think it's more so like we need to remind ourselves what the best version of us is. Um, and hope that we can keep that up for as long as possible. Because the cool thing about a new relationship with any person, whether it be platonic, just friends like you and I, or a romantic relationship, is like when it starts, like there's a new basement, a new foundation to start with, right? So when you meet
Mhm.
someone new, they don't know anything about your past. So you can present yourself however you want to. And then they only have the reference from the beginning relationship to grow. So like we always want to put our best foot forward and present ourselves the best and try to hope that we can keep up that standard. Um, so I think that goes with every relationship, but as far as like a romantic one, yes, we're trying to keep the longevity. So we're trying to attract, um, a woman in a certain way that we can get her attention. And those are societal things that we have to do in order for that to happen most of the time.
Yeah. And another thing I was thinking about is women being convinced that they need to see those things from us, right? The car, the shoes, all the random stuff that doesn't really necessarily mean anything, right? And then portraying that message to us as well. So now we believe that we need to present those things. But then I also think because it's literally all a facade, right? Unless you like actually have the money to do those things. But
Mhm.
the whole point is that none of that really means anything, right? What's the substance of what a relationship could be? And I feel like that's why so many relationships fail, right? Because I'm basically saying I'm attracted to you because you have what what the perception is showing is money or stability. But what stability do I do I truly care about in the relationship? Because the money can go away just like that,
Mhm.
right? But now, are you emotionally stable?
Right.
Right? Like, that's
Yeah. Are you stable in your beliefs that I thought that we had? Like whether it be religious or just moral beliefs? Like, are you flip flopping through everything, or do you have some type of foundation? Like
yeah,
those things at the end of the day, I feel like are more important. Um, and in conversations I've had, they have seemed more important with women I've had conversations with too. But it's like you don't just end up having these deep moral stability conversations in that initial meeting. So how can you know, in
yeah,
general? So yeah, I don't know. And I think going back to um, your resume analogies, it's like that's why I hate resumes.
yeah,
They're ridiculous because all you're doing is fluffing what, instead of saying, I know Microsoft Word, it's processing systems that can, evaluate and communicate, blah, blah, blah. Like, and that's dumb. But it's something that has to get you in the door so you can get in front of the people for the interview. I am convinced if I can get in front of anyone, I can knock an interview out the park. But it's this stupid piece of paper or this digital copy that I have to make it through so I can be chosen to be evaluated in person. So I don't know. It's just and I feel like that's the same thing with relationships, which I think I'm a anti-system person, which maybe is why I was just like, this is dumb. Because when I was younger, I would see people that did that, or maybe seem cuter or have it more together or have more money, whatever. And in that time frame, like when they were going, they were still like not having successful relationships. So it's like, yes, you might be able to quote unquote get a woman or get her attention or get her to um want to try you out, like you know but like at the end of the day, like you're not stable, you don't even know where you're going, um you're not being available emotionally for her, You don't even know how to do these things. But we're not talking about those things. We're talking about, taking people out, getting money, whatever. Um, so that was the I think that was why one of those stances that I took, like, I'm just gonna be me, and eventually, a healthy me will find a healthy spouse, or someone that's willing to we can work toward a healthy relationship. I think I figured that out early enough to not care, um, and be okay. So it worked out in my favor. I don't know if it would work out for everybody, but it's worked out for me.
Yeah. I mean, being married, man, whatever my path was, it worked out in the end, right? Um, but I don't know, man. Do you ever think to yourself, I wish I knew more of what I know now back then? And this,
I wish.
it's a dangerous question because this isn't to say like I could have like saved a relationship, right? It's just like life could have been easier.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like and this goes back to what's the more valuable skill. I wish I knew what I knew now about the skills of marriage at the start of my marriage than right now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
because they don't always, you don't really understand the depth of marriage until you are married. So I don't know if they
Mm,
would applying marriage skills to like a random relationship. I don't know if that would have worked, if that makes
right.
sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Because, was I ready to be emotionally involved and do what it takes to be married with every female that I've ever, had a relationship with? No. Or even every female that I've met that had a potential? No.
right.
So I don't know. I wish I would have known that more in the context of my marriage than with just a past relationship.
That makes a lot of
So
sense. Makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
But I
Yeah,
mean, we're running on time, so
yeah,
I just want to thank y'all for enduring our random rant today on this episode.
yeah. It was a ramble, but it was a fun conversation, and I think it'll start some conversations out there. So I'm all about it.
For sure. I think we definitely need to um, have some female perspective guests and walk through this topic for sure.
Yeah,
So there'll probably be a part two to this sometime down the road.
yeah. Or maybe you can catch us on Clubhouse. We'll start a conversation there too.
True story.